The Deus Ex series has enjoyed no small amount of acclaim since its inception in 2000. In fact, the first game is popularly considered to be the best PC game of all time. It's had a massive influence on the gaming industry as a whole, and its legacy can be felt to this day, namely in the sequels, the latest of which was released in August of 2016. Seeing as I had it lying around in my Steam library and I was a big fan of Human Revolution, I thought it would be a great idea to look back on this landmark title and play through it. You know, for science. The first and practically only barrier for entry would have to be the fact that it's quite a hassle to get running on a modern machine, which you might expect from a 17-year-old game. If you're planning on picking it up on Steam, just realize it'll require a bit more work than installing it and hitting the play button. At least that's how it was for me anyway. The game starts on Liberty Island. It's your first day on the job at UNATCO, an international anti-terrorist organization. It just so happens that a group of terrorists have recently attacked and occupied the Statue of Liberty. It also just so happens that UNATCO's headquarters are literally right next to the Statue of Liberty. Convenient. Either way, your character, J.C. Denton, meets up with his brother, Paul, for a briefing. He offers us a rocket launcher, sniper rifle, or tranquilizer gun. Obviously, your experience with the first level, and perhaps the entire game, will drastically change depending on your choice. The first mission is amazing, offering a large and open-ended level with a pretty vague objective. Your only main goal is to reach the top of the Statue of Liberty, and also maybe rescue some guy while you're in the neighborhood. There are a ton of options in how you approach this, lots of out-of-the-way areas to explore and items to grab, and a lot of routes to actually get there. It was the perfect way to start a game with such player-driven gameplay. No single player will have exactly the same experience on their first time through, and it's really what powers Deus Ex at its core, a massive sense of variety and choice in how you play it. The game's structure is broken up into missions, in which you're dropped off either at an enemy base or a city hub, or sometimes an enemy base within a city hub. Afterwards, you climb back into your helicopter and are taken back to a friendly location to prepare for whatever comes next. In one mission, you might be settling a dispute between two Chinese gangs. In the next, infiltrating a submarine base overrun by genetically mutated animals and a malfunctioning security system. There's a strong emphasis on stealth. Even on normal difficulty, many enemies can one-shot you. Staying in the shadows and putting thought in how to handle enemies is always a good idea, even if you're going for a more aggressive playstyle like I was. Running and gunning isn't very effective. You should always pick your targets carefully and make sure to leave no witnesses, or at least no evidence, unless you want everyone in the whole map to know your exact location. The entire experience of Deus Ex is marinated with a huge variety of music from no less than 3 composers. You've no doubt been hearing its melodic and even surreal techno beats in the background of this very video. Each track gives the area an atmosphere that probably just wasn't possible with the technology at the time otherwise. It conveys the feelings and emotions of what you're doing at the time wonderfully. Despite its age, this game's early 2000 clunkiness was surprisingly easy to adapt to. The stealth, while a tad simplistic, works fantastically. Enemies will hear you if you run, see you in places where it would make sense for them to see you, and act pretty realistically when their life is threatened. If you shoot them, they'll often run away to find an alarm to sound. The level design is realistic and logical, making it relatively easy to navigate, despite there not being a map, apart from the times where you're given a static satellite image or a blueprint of the floor plan. If approaching your objective from one angle doesn't work, there's almost always an alternate path or a clever way around it, depending on how you allocate your skill points and how wisely you've been spending your resources. Because yes, Deus Ex is also an RPG, allowing you to sink points into several categories like rifles, pistols, hacking, lockpicking, etc. You get skill points mostly by exploring out-of-the-way areas or accomplishing objectives. Getting enough skill points to level something up doesn't happen often, but it makes a big difference when you do. A single point in lockpicking, for example, will basically have the amount of lockpicks you need to use for the rest of the game. Putting points into the rifle skill will drastically improve how well you aim as well as your potential damage. Using a sniper rifle untrained will make your aiming reticle wobble all over the place, but a master will be able to kill an enemy a mile away without the slightest sway. There are also lots of augments to collect. JC, being a cyborg, can install powerful abilities that can seriously help you in a tight spot, as well as unlocking even more potential paths. These include things from a simple flashlight to being able to turn yourself invisible. You find these abilities scattered throughout the game, sometimes in easily missable locations, which really encourages you to search every every crevice, just in case you missed one of these things. Whenever you activate one, it eats up battery power, so you can't use them indefinitely. Whenever you install one, it gives you two options of very different abilities, which will undoubtedly change the way you play the game. A good example is the cranial augment, which allows you to choose either a deployable spy drone or a massive defense against explosive projectiles. You could also find upgrade canisters, which allow you to improve an augment of your choice up to 4 times. These things are even more rare than the augments themselves though, so upgrading all of them is impossible. This furthers the game's emphasis on specializing in the playstyle you enjoy most. Being a jack of all trades is an option, but your skill points and upgrade canisters will be far better spent making one or a few skills extremely good, instead of making all your skills slightly less mediocre. There are plenty of side quests, or secondary goals as they're called. You can find them by talking to NPCs, and they generally provide you with vital items or information which helps you with your primary goals. I mean really, this game pretty much wrote the textbook on replayability. The player is given an immense amount of freedom. The game doesn't stop you from using the mechanics to your advantage. The rules are clear and can be bent according to your creativity and execution. The game is built around these singular objectives that can be accomplished in a variety of ways in levels that push you to explore your options. It encourages you no matter what your build might be. All builds are appropriately viable as well as engaging. Killing everything in sight is just as much fun as sticking strictly to stealth and non-lethal means. The story of Deus Ex can be summed up in just a few words. Trenchcoats and sunglasses, phone booths in the year 2052, government conspiracies, Illuminati confirmed, Area 51, corporate elite, nano augmentation. I think you get the point. You're up to your neck in wacky conspiracy theories and pretend politics mixed in with real-world facts and philosophy. Though, granted, most of its predictions about what the future would be like have already been made obsolete, so can feel a bit silly at times through our modern lenses. One thing I was impressed by are the long-lasting consequences of your actions earlier in the story. For example, if you don't actively neutralize a suspicious, yet seemingly harmless NPC in a single section of the game, one of the main characters will literally die a few hours later.
She's fueled up and ready to go.
Is something wrong?
Huh? No, I said I checked her out. You want the thing to run, right? If you're gonna cross the ocean.
Of course. Better safe than sorry.
This is just one of the many instances where your actions will affect the future in ways you can't always foresee. Games struggle to do that kind of thing with subtlety and realism nowadays, and yet Deus Ex was doing it nearly 2 decades ago. Honestly, there's so very little that Deus Ex does wrong. What more can I say? You can't expect much else from a game popularly considered the greatest ever made. Yet, sadly, time ruins everything, doesn't it? This once cutting-edge masterpiece is a boxy, low-poly eyesore with cringe-worthy voice acting and exploitable AI. A lot of people are going to pass it by no matter how good they heard it is simply because of its age. And can you really blame them? This is the kind of game that really needs a remaster with all the fancy bells and whistles you would expect from a modern game. I'm not talking about simple texture and model replacements, I'm talking about a full-on remake from the ground up, kind of like what Black Mesa is to Half-Life. Can you imagine a game with this kind of depth put in the newer Deus Ex engine? Would you even need any other games? Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for your continued support and feedback. My name is JaBoc, and may we meet again.
What a shame.